All right. Do I have a motion to reconvene the work-study special meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All right. Now, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 2.3, roll call. All members of the board are present. From the cabinet, Mr. Dolezal is here, Dr. Jensen, and Mrs. Rodriguez are present. Is there a motion to, item 2.4, is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our agenda. Item 4.1, call to the public. Do we have any? There are none. All right. Item 5.1, field trips. This is action consent, so is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right. Item 6.1. Where am I? 6.1. All right. 6.1. Revisit the online charter school student participation in AIA and activities, presented by me. At the August 8th, 2023 meeting, the CCUSD Governing Board voted 3-2 to allow online charter students who live in CCUSD boundaries to participate in Cactus Shadows AIA activities. Doctors Hendrickson and Pletnick presented to the board on September 12, 2023. The presentation included potential ramifications of allowing online charter students to participate in CSHS AIA sports that included discipline, grades, and student handbook. They also discussed the cost of allowing online charter students to participate, which included a registration fee and a per-sport fee. They noted that CCUSD was the only school district in Arizona allowing online charter students to participate in AIA activities at Cactus Shadows. AIA did not have guidance. The CCUSD athletic handbook would need to be rewritten. Processes would need to be in place regarding online charter, student grades, attendance, and discipline reporting. The fee was tabled at the September 12th meeting. Okay, so let's move on to this action item. And do I have a motion for this?
Yeah, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So are there comments regarding this?
Well, at the September 12th meeting, I pretty much, after listening to Dr. Pletnick talk about the incredible amount of work that would go into having to do this and to monitor it, and the helter-skelter way it would be to get information from these online charters. Would we even get it? Would we not? The time and money that would go into it, and the very little payoff. I wasn't for it in the beginning. I understood what some of the things to do it were for, but it seemed like a really bad idea. And with having no guidance on how to do this, and the AIA basically saying you probably shouldn't be doing this, I really think that we should reverse this and go back to having them not be able to participate. There's just no way that we can do this in a way that's going to work for the district. So that's at least my initial thought.
Anybody else?
I feel the same way. I voted in favor of allowing the outside students to participate, but without all the, as I shared, I had a very sleepless night that night after the board meeting, after your awesome presentation, Dr. Plutnik, and the time put into it, and really looking at the ramifications. And I will say, for me personally, it was a great learning experience as a board member of understanding why certain things should be tabled at times when you don't have all the information. And so I think it was a great learning lesson for all of us. And I agree with Member Fortney in terms of really looking at what now being presented with what that would entail, what it would do to our district, to the added workload, potential financial liabilities, and all of that. I would like to revisit the whole entire thing also.
I agree. I'm in the exact same. But as you, Member Ulmer, and having that presentation after the fact was eye-opening. So appreciate all the work that went into that.
Scott, any comments?
Yes. I unfortunately was not able to attend the September 12th meeting. I did review the minutes. I did watch the video of the meeting. Again, I actually watched it a second time this afternoon just to refresh what was presented by Dr. Plutnik. There's an issue. There's several issues. The one issue I've got, if you look up on the AAA, the Article 15, 3.1.2, which is the online charter school students. In the verbiage, on an annual basis prior to the beginning of the school year, member school governing board shall determine by formal board action whether it will permit online charter school students to try out for interscholastic athletics and activities, and said board determination will remain in effect for that school year. So now I don't know if we'll be in issue with the AIA if now we go back to say, we thought we had a good idea until we heard the particulars. Now we want to change our vote, where in their bylaws, we're stuck for the school year.
Go ahead.
That's just a comment, not necessarily a question. So that's something that maybe we might need to either ask the AIA or ask our legal counsel. If we violate this bylaw, then does that invalidate all of our teams for the rest of the school year? Because the AIA, as we all know, oh boy. I want to say this, but I shouldn't say it, and there are certain schools, if you've got a different name on your front that doesn't say Cactus Shadows, maybe the IA would jump up and help certain schools work through this issue if they knew they were going to receive a top-notch soccer player, a top-notch swim and dive person, a top-notch golfer. Us being Cactus Shadows and our history with the AIA, we would probably be thrown to the lions. It's unfortunate, but it's the way of the world. And it's the world in which all their member schools participate in. So I thought we might be doing the right thing. The AIA does make rules and regulations for homeschool students, and we have had homeschool students in our district participate on school teams in the past. So they've got the homeschool piece all figured out. A lot of that probably would carry over to an online student, since they've got this, but with the AIA not really wanting to establish a procedure and understand the efforts that it would take on our part, it's just not feasible at this time, for us to go down that road. Like I said, the only thing that really stopped me, or might stop us, is that bylaw, how it's written in Article 15, that we make the vote and it's good for the whole school year. So I guess my request then would be if Superintendent Dolezal could reach out to legal and or reach out to the AIA or their legal and say, look, we thought we might do the right thing. Maybe to entice kids to come back to school. Now that we've seen the nuts and bolts of it, we don't want to get into that deep end of the pool. Can we back out of this without penalty? Because if the EIA in their grand wisdom says, no, it is what it is, then we're going to have to live with this for the rest of the school year.
Vice President Brown, I might bring Dr. Plotnick up as well, but in conversations with him and with AIA, as you quoted that specific bylaw, that meeting actually took place after school had started. So it is possible, and AIA, I believe, even mentioned that it would be possible for us not to do it, even though you had voted for it, because it actually happened after school had started, which is that that was not something we were interested in doing. If our board has made a decision and has voted, then we felt that was what we needed to do and not pull that card. However, they did present us that card to play prior. Dr. Plotnick, did you have anything to add along those lines?
No, I did have a discussion with the EIA and Dr. Dean at the EIA about that situation happening afterwards. And the fact of the matter is, it happened after school started, so that was one point that if there was a reversal, that was one of the reasons why we could not have before. I certainly can talk to Dr. Dean again regarding that, but that was specifically.
And then Vice President Brown and members of the board, we also did run this by our legal and got the language in order to put in here to help with that motion in terms of rescinding, and that would be the appropriate legal way to do that as recommended by our legal team as well.
Then, if I remember the presentation from the 12th, we have a student now that's currently online that's at on one of our teams.
Vice President Brown, no, we do actually have homeschooled students. So the manner in which you had spoke of before, we do have homeschooled students. The one student that we're aware of is actually interested in a winter sport that has not begun yet. So there is no one currently playing that fits this definition of an online charter school student.
Okay, because I must have misunderstood. I thought we had one currently and 5 that were going to go away but decided to stay. That might have been online charter kids, but decided to stay here, here at the brick and mortar to participate.
Vice President Brown, I think it's just that one is actually referencing the person who wants to come that would be trying out for a sport later that
Okay.
hasn't started yet.
And then, Dr. Plotnick, you made the comment that currently there's 20 varsity sports and soon to be 22. So we are planning on adding a girls wrestling team.
What we're looking at is the expansion to the varsity level. So we looked at last year in the addition of wrestling as well as the addition of beach volleyball. Those were brought on without varsity at that point. And now the expansion will move to the varsity level, according to Mr. Hammond at this point. So that would increase the amount of sports and the balance.
So that will put us up to 22 then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has there been any discussion? I don't know if girls wrestling, has there been a lot of demand for that? Do we have a lot of girls at the high school on the club wrestling team?
Scott, we're kind of deviating from
Okay.
this topic.
All right.
I apologize, didn't mean to be rude.
That's fine. There's other sports that the EIA recognizes. Are we looking to include any of those anywhere down the road? I.e. girls flag football?
We're specific, this agenda item is specifically about the vote that we took, not about what sports we're
Okay,
offering.
okay, fine. I think just to be safe with the Arizona Interscholastic Association, I think we'd like to have maybe something in writing before we vote if we're going to change. Not to say that I don't trust them, but I really don't trust them. And what they might have said to Dr. Plotnick at a meeting over the phone or whatever, I think for our safety and the safety of our varsity and junior varsity teams at the high school, I think I'd like to have something in writing. That if we decide to change our vote, it's not that this 15.3.12 won't come back to bite us.
Dr. Plotnick, for clarification, just to make sure I understand, if we voted on this before our school year started. This is completely binding, etched in stone. We can't change it. Since it was voted on after school started, that's where the wiggle room comes?
That definitely is where wiggle room does come on that, and that is an exact conversation that I did have at that point, because it did happen after school did begin. Before, again, this is unprecedented. No one has ever voted yes before. We currently do not have any online charter school athletes participating. So without having any athletes participating in fall sports, as well as there are no athletes who are online charter school athletes that are signed up at the current moment or have even tried out. We don't have any athletes that would be in danger of being ineligible to play at that point.
Okay.
Do we, I know fall sports are starting to wrap up. Do you know when tryouts begin for the winter sports? I would think time is of the essence with
Yeah,
this.
that was my.
Yeah.
Next week is what we're
Okay.
looking at.
Okay. Are there any other comments, questions?
Does that mean we would have to have this rescinded by next week in order to prevent?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that.
Any other comments? Okay. Do you have a comment? Okay. We're going to vote on this to rescind, an I vote would be to rescind our prior vote from August 8th, and we're going to do roll call vote, okay? Oh, we already did, didn't we already do a motion? Oh, we do
Just
need
open
a.
this up.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
We need a motion to rescind the charter school participation in district athletics.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, so we're going to do a roll call vote on this. And as I said, an I vote is rescinding. You are in favor of taking it away. So, Scott? You want me to start?
I'm going to vote no, with the caveat that I'd like to see something on paper from the AIA that we're not going to be penalized.
Brianna?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. All right, item 7.1, determining, I've got the script. Item 7.1, determining fees for charter students in the district athletics. I move to remove agenda item 7.1 from our discussion and decision-making due to the mootness as the circumstances have changed and the issue is no longer relevant or necessary for deliberation. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, that motion passes. All right, we are now at 7.2, the Trust Model Policy Program, presented by Mr. Dolezal.
President Busby, members of the board, the Cabinet recommends and moves that the governing board approve the Trust Model Policy Program for implementation July 1st of the 24-25 school year.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Right. Any comments? Discussion? I'll start with this. As I had said at the previous meeting, Jackie and I had both attended the trust model policy presentation that the trust put together. And it was very comprehensive and very streamlined as far as what they're offering to do for the policies. One of the things that I really appreciated is we get our legal guidance from the attorneys in the trust, and there were 4 different trust law firms that went into building their policy program, and it seems that it would be much easier for an attorney to defend the policies that they've written and they are most familiar with and understanding, as opposed to policies that were written elsewhere, and, you know, it's like defending somebody else's work, essentially. And it would also present an opportunity, a much-needed opportunity for the district policies to be reviewed, and there are some policies that are probably not really relevant, and we have a lot of what I refer to as homegrown policies that may or may not be pertinent to the current state of affairs in the district. So, anyway, any other comments?
So we would, it seems so long ago that we had this presentation. So basically, the choices were to do it through this trust or to do it on our own. And the trust seemed to be not only really comprehensive and well done as far as the law goes, but it would be a way to, I don't know if retrofit, but upgrade and you know, clean up our policies as we're moving into this new style and new format. That's correct?
Member Fortney, yes, I would agree with that. It is an opportunity to, and based on feedback from the various board members, it has been made evident, and even in my experience over the past 3 months, really looking at these, that it needs, a cleaning is necessary, whether that is going through our current policies that are managed through ASBA, going through the red lines, doing all of those revisions and coming at it that way, or the other model, if we shifted to the trust model policy, we're really starting from scratch and can build those, can bring over policies that we need to. So yes, it accomplishes both of those things.
You know, one of the things that had occurred to me is a lot of the policies that are Cave Creek specific, they were all initiated by a leadership team that isn't even here anymore. And my experience with employees and managers, you know, when it's your policy, your procedure, when your leadership team has taken ownership in the process, the policies, there's a lot more. It's a much more positive atmosphere. Not to say that ASBA policies has created a negative atmosphere, but it gives the leadership team some real ownership in the district, so to speak, because, you know, they will all be asked to look at our policies and fine tune and weed out what we don't need.
In looking at this ASB policy subscription that we currently do, it says it's a 48-month. Are we at the end of our term?
No.
Member Walker, good question. This is actually the second of 4 years, so we do still have 2 years remaining on that contract.
Okay, and it looks like our cost with our about $5,000-ish, based on our student a year.
Member Walker, that is correct. So we have written and signed a contract, so we are paying $10,000, rounding up a couple of dollars, to ASBA for that.
Okay.
The additional cost would come in if we move to the trust. It would be an additional $255 one-time fee, and then $240 every year. So we're not adding an incredible amount of money to that. In the administration's mind, starting fresh, starting over, having that clean slate, being able to do that is well worth that addition, less than $1,000 over that same 2-year period that we'd have to pay that already. We certainly would go to ASBA and see if there's anything we can do. We'll at least ask and see if there's anything we can do to get out of that. But the language in the contract does appear fairly clear that the severance fee for it is to pay the rest of your,
Or have double, because it seems like it could take some time to
Well,
adopt the whole trust
yeah.
policy.
Currently, our employee benefits are offered through ASBA. So if we move our policy to the trust, how is that going to impact the employee benefits?
President Busby, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Rodriguez for that one.
Thank you, President Busby, members of the board. So we will continue, if the board agrees, to still be members of the Arizona School Board Association. So we pay another $10,000 a year for membership, and that services that the governing board receives. That would be training and offerings, any type of support that you as governing board members receive from the Arizona School Board Association. So in having that membership would keep us in good standing. As you all know, I am a trustee of ASBATE, and this has been a conversation at our meetings because there are several districts, our member districts, that are leaving for policy reasons. But if they continue to be members, then they may still be part of ASBATE.
So we can be a member, just not participate in their policy program.
That is correct, Member Brown.
And regardless of what we do, we're on the hook for 2 years of membership dues, like it or not. Okay.
President Busby, I just want to clarify, we're on the hook for 2 years of board policy dues. The membership is a separate year by year.
Yes, thank you. That's what I meant, but yes. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I went through and looked on our policy manual right now, broken up by 12 different classifications, and just counted the number of copyrighted policy, because that's what basically what we're dealing with coming from state guidance and Department of Ed and whatever else. There's a lot of human resource items in there that it's federal guidelines. So there's a lot of that that's mandatory. I counted that currently Cave Creek Unified has 542 copyrighted policies currently in our book, in our manual. Now, I might have missed one or two, so don't hold me hard to that number. And that's not counting what we also classify as exhibits or regulations. So there's even more documents in that policy book. I clicked over to the Trust website onto their model policy program. They list, I believe, 12 school districts that have already switched over. 7, 8, 9, yes. So I pulled up two of theirs. I pulled up Pima Unified School District, and I pulled up Dysart Unified School District, assuming they were maybe close to us. In their trust model policy program, they're what now they call chapters. There are 5 chapters. Pima had 189 copyrighted policies, and Dysart had 191. So quite a number less than what we currently have through ASBA's, what we show on our ASBA policy book.
From what I understand, in the presentation that was given at the conference that we attended, there are policies that can be grouped together. They work in unison, so they haven't rewritten the law, but they've written the policies to be a little more comprehensive, and I think that might be part of why there's not so many.
Well, they still have to confine to
Well, they
Arizona
do.
state
They do.
statute,
They still,
too. I
they
mean-
still adhere to what the statute is. It's my understanding that there are several policies that maybe ASB has 5 policies in one topic area, and the trust has rewritten the policy into maybe 2 instead of 5.
And President Busby and Vice President Brown,
Right.
sorry, if I could just clarify as well, one of the things that's different between the ASBA policy and the trust policy is they really focus, because lawyers have done this, they've really focused just on what is absolutely necessary from a legal standpoint, and then left more space for local entities, local governing boards, to add things that are specific to them. I think that has something to do with the amount of lowered copyright, is because they really focus just on what is absolutely legally necessary, and did not have other things that were not necessitated by state statute or federal law.
So we could be cleaning up a lot of these things that maybe we don't need, or we have many different variations or pieces. That would be part of the process of cleaning this up and organizing them into these 5 chapters and seeing. And then during that time, I would assume that there would be a lot of interplay with the administration and going over these things, and maybe even some committees to look over these things and say, okay, this is what you have now. This is what we're looking at it looking like when we're done. And then we'd say yes or no.
Member Fortney, absolutely. One of the first things that would take, in my mind, we'd go at least 60 days out, so through the rest of December anyway, is really reviewing the policies, district administration really looking at those, committees, our legal counsel, all of that. What was in ASBA? Where does it go now as it moves over? Where are the things that aren't legally necessary, but they are Cave Creek, and we want to maintain those? Where do those go? We get their guidance in terms of where do those fit within their 5 chapters. So that's absolutely the first step. Once we would go through that step of determining where those pieces fit in and crosswalk, they have created a crosswalk, which is nice. You know, here's where it is in ASBA. This is where it fits. So a lot of that, but literally it will give us as a team an opportunity to go through, and I will not quote you on that number, Vice President Brown, but the 500 and something, and then on top of that, every exhibit and all of those, for us to literally go through those in committees and then shift those as warranted, as needed, as necessary in order to shift them into the trust model policy. We would then bring, in my mind, there's 5 chapters, so I'd like to see kind of a 2-2-1 model. We'll look at which one is the biggest. We'd leave that as the singleton, but then bring to the board, thinking February, March, and April, 2 chapters, 1 chapter, kind of review those, get feedback. Again, that gives us time to go through our meetings, our various groups, our stakeholders, get some feedback on anything we'd need from teachers, all of that. And that way you would give us feedback, we could bring back revisions, and then it would be voted on, like I said, thinking February, March, April, bring it back the following meeting for a vote that would be effective July 1. I think, Member Walker, you had mentioned something about dual things. I don't think that's a good idea to have 2 active things at once, so we'd really want a clean line of, okay, this is when this one is ending and this is when it is starting. But we can do the work to have it all set to be ready for July 1 and that lead time. That would also give us May and June. I think, as Vice President Brown kind of pointed out as well, all the legal connections, we'll do our best as we go, especially if we're thinking HR. Our employee handbook references our current board policy. So we would need to update that employee handbook to then switch it over into the trust policy. So all the different forms we have for different things that reference that policy, we need to update. That schedule right there in terms of February, March, and April then also gives us May and June to make sure we've cleaned up, we've caught it all, we've got those things ready to go. So on July 1st, it's a clean switch over.
So we're looking kind of like, they have that different examples. We're looking at kind of a medium to extended timeline approach to this thing.
Member Fortney, you nailed it right on the head. I would be a hybrid of that medium and an extended time approach. Exactly.
Okay.
Will the trust be providing guidance through the process?
Or actually, prepaid legal would be providing us guidance along with the trust, but we would go through our prepaid legal, which are firms that worked on it as well. So between the trust assistance and our prepaid legal, that's as that's where we would get our guidance.
Okay.
The fee's so low in comparison because it utilizes our prepaid legal cost, right? Because, I mean, this is obviously going to be hours and hours and hours of work. And if it's $500 a year, it doesn't make sense on paper. But that's because of the utilized prepaid legal. Do they give a no? About how many hours?
Member Walker,
of,
right? We do prepaid legal. Period. It's already
Right.
done. So that really, our prepaid legal even handles when we have ASBA things or things, with policy right now. Talking with Denise Lowell-Britt, who came and presented and all of that, it's so low because they're really looking at if we do this well and work with them well, it's going to reduce our liability. If that reduces our liability, our claims. So they're ultimately recovering their money on that end as opposed to a large fee in terms of that. Mrs.
yeah,
Rodriguez,
I think I
did you
was
wanna-
more asking the prepaid legal. I get, but it has to have a cap of how many hours, right? Annually that covers. If you have 1 million lawsuits against you, I would think your fee for prepaid legal is going to cap.
Well, thank you, Member Walker, for that question, members of the board. The way prepaid legal works is we really pretty much get unlimited legal services, but they're going to come back and revise our premium, like we saw this last year when the trust brought the their renewal to us, right? We saw prepaid legal go up. So if there is a lot of hours invested in this, you are correct. We could potentially receive prepaid legal increase in our premium next year.
If the situation would require a lot of legal time for this transition, when they're figuring out what our fee would be for the next year, would they take into account that so many hours were solely for this transition of policies, sort of a one-off that, we did it this one year, next year we're not going to have to do this?
Well, Madam President, members of the board, I have not had that conversation with our trust representative to see how that would impact. I am going to be meeting with our representative next week to talk about planning for next year and in premiums. So we can ask that question. I don't know if they will make an exception for this, but as Superintendent Dozel had mentioned, a lot of the legwork has already been done. With the crosswalks that have been created, because you see, we weren't one of the first districts to jump into this for that very reason, because we wanted some of the other districts to kind of iron the kinks out and then allow us to then, take advantage of the work that they've already done. So we're hopeful that there will not be a whole lot of legal required for this, that a lot of it can be done with that crosswalk. We have highly talented people in this district who know these policies very well. I know for a fact when I'm looking at the business operations side of it, my team and I will be taking a look at that crosswalk and then identify where the gaps are. So the only time that I could see we really be using legal is maybe if there were some gaps that we would ask for additional policy to be written in order to fill those, if the governing board felt like that was an area that we would want to have in our policy that is not currently in this trust model.
Okay. Any other questions?
I would hope, since the trust came and gave the sales pitch to us, that they wouldn't penalize us for the prepaid legal if there's extra hours incurred just by moving us over to their new model policy program, that then they wouldn't come back and say, oh, by the way, you blew your hours out of the water, so now we're going to get you here next year when you renew. That'd be kind of a knife in the back kind of a move, and I would hope, since we're pitching in with this new group, that's not how we start out.
I would hope not.
I would hope not.
I would hope not. But again, I can't with all certainty answer that question right now because
Yeah.
I haven't asked that specific question.
I mean,
to
our,
them.
our insurance costs through the trust have gone up, as with everything else, but, you know, over the last 3 years, it's gone up over $219,000, and if they come back and want another 50 or 60,000, you know, that's almost a teacher and a half that we can't have because we got to pay for their charge for prepaid legal, and it's like, I don't want that discussion come next May that we can't have 2 teachers because we got to pay for their policy program.
Noted.
Is there a contract same 4 years, or is it annually? How does that differ from the one we're in?
Member Walker, in the agreement that was in there, either side 60-day notification
Okay.
is written in there. So it's a year by year, and as the contract is currently just 60 days.
And then our contract with ASBA, we can terminate agreement anytime we've delivered notice in writing and pay the early termination fee. So if we go down this road and we're looking at the timeline of the start of the next school year, then that at least gives us 6 more months that we've accrued through the ASBA contract. So if there's no other way out or no, sure, we'll let you go to our competitor for free, you know, then we'll still have to pay. There's still going to be a penalty there that the district's going to have to pay. I don't see the ASBA just letting us walk out the door for free. So, I mean, if we signed a 48-month deal with ASBA, we're basically
22. Year and a
barely
half.
got 16 months out of the 48 down right now. So if you figure out what we've paid, you know, the cost of drops over $13,000 as of today. So again, you know, $13,000 on our budget goes a long way filling holes. I hate to see us, I don't want to say throwing money away, but we have to be financially responsible. And, you know, we're looking for every dime we can find, and just to say, well, we want to jump ship, so we'll pay the $13,000 to get out. That's also a tough discussion I don't want to have.
Well, I guess I'm assuming we won't cancel anything until the other one's up and ready to go. So if it takes longer than just the next year. Seems like a big undertaking to me, but maybe not.
Exactly.
And we pay $49.68 a year for
Year.
the 4 years with ASBA. So we've got a year and a half under our belt right now. You know, we'll have 2 years if we go July 1. So there's still going to be a penalty, I'm sure. Do we just want to eat the 13 or eat the 10 grand or whatever to be at that time? I guess that's a discussion we'll have in June.
We would pay that regardless, right? If we stayed with them, we'd still be paying that amount. But what we're looking at adding is 240 or,
Yes.
Yes, Member Elmore, it would be the one-time fee of $255, which then gives us access to their site and where our documents would be uploaded, and then $240 per year.
so either way, we're either adding 240 or not. We'll still be paying ASBA regardless.
Exactly.
Yeah, Member Elmore, I would, again, rough math right now, you're talking 700 or so additional dollars on top of that. Almost 10,000 would be to switch. And again, administration's recommending just that additional cost and thinks ultimately it would be saving time in the long run and get a better product.
And saving money as we go forward, too.
Yeah. So it could eventually pay for itself.
All right.
Any other comments?
The ASBA contract does allow for a policy manual review. They said they recommend every 4 years. I don't think we've ever had the ASBA review our policies, have we? I mean, not that I can recall.
I
Could
tell you for as long as I've been.
Vice President Brown, sorry to interrupt. They do offer it. It is also costly. I do know that the trust member policy also offers that same review. I would recommend about every 3 to 5 years, which is, I think, similar. 4 is right in the middle, so ASPA's on target with that. The trust model policy review is $1,000. I do not know the cost, but I do know it was much more expensive than that through ASBA.
They don't list the fee on their contract. I was just thinking, would it behoove us to maybe begin the process and start weeding out some of the policy that we don't want to carry over with ASBA, and then come to help us maybe not move so much quantity over to the trust, reduce our workload a little bit there? I mean, from
Vice President Brown, I echo the sentiment of Marcy. I think the people in our district have the talent and the ability to do that and help weed that out without paying an additional fee to ASBA for their assistance in doing that. I think that's part of the natural process of going and establishing these news is what do we currently have, what is crosswalked over, then all those additional things that have not been crosswalked over, okay, are they necessary, are they needed, what are those, and that weeding process will take place naturally through that discussion and work that would.
And getting legal advice that whole time from our folks.
Member Fortney, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, the policy is intended to make sure we are following the law and covering our bases. So yes, by all means, we want to make sure that we are doing that.
Any other comments? Okay, we will do a roll call vote to move to the trust model policy program. We did a motion. Yeah. I got lost in the discussion.
That was a while ago.
Yeah. Scott,
this is to vote to
move.
make the move, pay the $700 or thereabouts, and begin the process.
Yes.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. All right, item 8.1, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody want to stay? Okay, we are adjourned at 6:48.
It doesn't say the fee, but on here it does say there's a fee.